Sam, you can go. You're online.
Hi, sorry about the technical glitches there. It's Sam Mclean, the National Director of GetUp here in the GetUp office for GetUp Live in week 3. And I want to say a big thanks for sticking with us through those technical issues there, and to everybody who's tuning in, because I know that you are the really dedicated GetUp members, the ones who are donating to power this campaign, who are perhaps joining us on the ground for candidates forums or for handing out our scorecards on polling booth. So it's really your actions that make everything possible. So we've got about 10 minutes to 15 minutes tonight, and I just wanted to take the chance to give you an insight into what we've been up to last week, our plans for the next week, and some of the interesting kind of insider news we've picked up from the GetUp office here. Most notably today, the Senate preference deals, which will reveal a lot about who might gain control of the Senate after the election. So to answer some questions live tonight, I've got the GetUp Twitter feed on next to me, and so if you want to interrupt and ask me to clarify something, or just ask me to give you an insight on something, just tweet at GetUp, and I'll see those and try and answer questions as they come in. So I'll start off with the Senate. There are 3 prongs to GetUp's strategy this election. The first is enrolling voters, and the rolls have closed to new voters for this election, and because of GetUp members and our campaigns, over 240,000 people will be able to vote this election who wouldn't otherwise have the chance. That's because of a High Court case back in 2010 that gave voters this year 7 days to enrol to vote. It's because of our federal court case and our online enrollment tool, which means that people can enrol to vote online for the first time ever, and most people now are enrolling to vote online. And so because of all of those efforts and our campaigning, over 240,000 people will be able to vote this election who wouldn't have otherwise had the chance. That's an incredible number. It's more than all of the top 5 cricket stadiums in Australia, full absolutely to capacity at the same time. That's how many voters are able to vote this year because of you. So that's our first prong, is enrolment. That's done. I think we did a very good job of it. Our second prong is the Senate. The Senate has always been really important to GetUp members. It's actually the reason that GetUp exists. We launched back in 2006 because John Howard and his government finally got rubber stamp control of the Senate. It means that the Senate was controlled by one party, and they were unable to do their job of reviewing the House of Representatives and reviewing the Prime Minister's legislation. So they did things like pass the sale of Telstra, the Northern Territory intervention, without any debate whatsoever. They were really rubber stamped for the government's agenda. And however you vote, I think it's not healthy for one party to have that much control. This election, there is a real chance that the Senate will become a rubber stamp once more. And so GetUp members have been campaigning to stop that from happening. Here's an update on how that's going. First of all, our biggest job in this campaign is to make sure that as many voters as possible understand what the Senate is about and understand the danger of a government having unchecked power. To that end, we released yesterday a video that's going really well virally on the internet right now. It's called Game of Seats. It's a parody of the very popular Game of Thrones TV series, the most downloaded program in the world. And if you can check it out on our Facebook page or on the GetUp homepage and share it with any Game of Thrones fans that you know. But it does a really good job of, in a funny way, explaining how the Senate works and why people might want to stop and consider whether the Senate should be controlled by the same party that has government. So that's one thing to check out. The other thing to note on Senate preferences, and this is kind of an interesting development today, is how preferences are going to work. And if you give me a couple of minutes, I want to take you through some of the things we've learned today, because a lot of GetUp members have been emailing in asking what do all these Senate preferences mean. I'm hearing things about WikiLeaks and about all these parties who are preferencing each other in the Senate. So I want to take a moment to explain it. The first thing is that in Australia in the Senate, of course you have 2 options. You can vote above the line for any party of your choice by simply putting a 1 in their box. So you might vote above the line in South Australia, for example, for Nick Xenophon as an independent. Just give him a 1. Now, what happens then is that if Nick Xenophon is not elected, if your first choice is not elected, your vote doesn't end there. It isn't wasted. It's passed on to other parties in an order of preference. until one of those parties is elected or gets to the final count. So that means that if you vote for a smaller party that isn't likely to get elected, your vote won't just go to waste, and it'll be passed on until it counts toward the final couple of candidates. So because there are so many candidates running, there are over 100 candidates in some of these Senate races, the person to whom you give your number one vote puts in a ticket and says, for the people who vote for me, if I'm not lucky enough to be elected, here's how their votes will be determined. So if you were to vote for Nick Xenophon, for example, as an independent in South Australia, and he's not elected, or if he gains so many votes that he has leftovers at the end, then he's lodged a ticket that determines how your votes are allocated. These are extremely important because this election in particular, there'll be a lot of people not voting for the major parties. A lot of people voting for smaller parties whose preferences will get passed on. And what we've discovered in the last day is how those votes will be allocated. There are some interesting developments. If you were thinking of voting for the WikiLeaks party, for example, you'd be interested to know that WikiLeaks are preferencing a number of parties like the Nationals, the Shooters and Fishers Party, and even Australia First, which is a party run by xenophobic and ex-neo-Nazi candidates, above the Greens, who are the only major party who have spoken out in favour of WikiLeaks. So in Western Australia, where that's going to be a very tight race between the Greens and the Nationals potentially, a vote for WikiLeaks will end up being a vote for the Nationals. In New South Wales, a vote for WikiLeaks could end up going to the Shooters and Fishers, who are a very conservative party, who've done some things with their balance of power vote in New South Wales Senate that I'm sure most GetUp members would be appalled by. So that's a very disappointing development. In Queensland, we know that ALP preferences in the Senate will be going to Bob Katter before they go to a lot of other parties. So in a race there for the last Senate seat that could be between the Greens and Bob Katter, ALP preferences will go to Bob Katter. That could have a very strong influence on the outcome and see Bob Katter gain election and a balance of power situation in the Queensland Senate. And Animal Justice Party is another one that GetUp members have been emailing in about today. They're a new party on the scene, and given hundreds of thousands of GetUp members have signed our petitions calling for end to live exports, we've been watching that with keen interest. Unfortunately, the Animal Justice Party have preferenced a number of conservative parties above parties that actually stand for animal welfare. In the ACT, the Animal Justice Party has put the Liberals ahead of the Greens, which is a puzzling development since the Greens, of course, supported and actively advocating for an end to live animal exports, whereas the Liberals did not. They justified that on the grounds of the Greens and the ACT territory government supporting a cull of kangaroos. But it means that if you vote for the Animal Justice Party in ACT, your vote will likely go to the coalition. And if you vote for them in New South Wales, you could find their preferences going to a number of conservative parties like Pauline Hanson. There is a scary prospect of Pauline Hanson now getting elected in New South Wales. She is collecting preferences from Senator Online Party, from Bob Katter, from the Sex Party, and from the Animal Justice Party, among many others. So part of our strategy in the coming weeks will be to help GetUp members and others understand, if you vote for one of these small parties, where will your vote actually end up? That's our second strategy stream there is the Senate. And the most exciting thing to note is that our Game of Thrones video is going extremely well online. Check it out on the GetUp homepage or Facebook wall and share it everywhere. And we'll be having a couple of more videos come out in the next 2 weeks, which do a really good job of explaining in 60 seconds how preferences work. And we can all share those with our friends. But of course, our final strategy in this election, after enrolling voters and protecting the Senate, is to make sure that the issues that GetUp members have voted for are at top of the agenda, particularly in marginal seats and close Senate races. And one of the really exciting developments there is GetUp members who are working together to host candidate forums. And the first of those candidate forums is actually on tonight. It's in Adelaide, in the electorate of Boothby, which is a very close marginal electorate. And in about 45 minutes, GetUp members Susan, Liz, Mark, Barbara, Peter and Michael will be hosting that first candidates forum. They've done an amazing job of reaching out to all the candidates, of organising a venue, of locking in a moderator, and they're expecting hundreds of locals to come along and hear the candidates talk firsthand on the issues that are really important to GetUp members. You know, these are GetUp members who a couple of weeks ago didn't even know each other. They got together on a conference call organised by some of our staff and volunteers that are sitting behind me, who have done a great job, and on a conference call committed to working together and organising a candidate forum. From there, they've met in person, they've distributed flyers all over the electorate, and tonight they'll have the candidates coming up and answering their questions. So that's the first one tonight. Tomorrow we'll have a candidates forum in the inner city seat of Brisbane, a very tight seat there. And we have representatives from every party, and we're expecting hundreds of people to attend. Later in the week, we have a candidates forum in Western Sydney in the electorate of Lindsay. This is my favourite because it has been organised by one GetUp member pretty much by himself. His name is Mitchell, he's 18 years old, and he has absolutely devoted himself for the last couple of weeks to organising that and getting candidates out to answer his questions and the questions of other GetUp members. So it's just amazing to see GetUp members come together from not knowing each other at all to a phone conference where they make a commitment to having candidates show up to their event and answer questions from hundreds of locals. That is amazing, and that's thanks to the donations of people who are paying for our organising team. It's thanks to all of the GetUp members who've stepped up and made that happen. So I'm checking out the Twitter stream now to see if I can answer some questions from people who are tuning in. One question we've had a lot of in the last week, in addition to asking for explanation of the Senate, is asking about our refugee campaign. We sent out an email on the weekend about Tony Abbott's refugee policy, and we've had a lot of questions about it. So I wanted to take the chance to answer some of those now. A lot of people are asking for a bit more clarity on what Tony Abbott is actually proposing. Well, Tony Abbott and Labor both agree on having offshore processing. That means taking asylum seekers who arrive on our shores seeking protection and putting them on Manus Island or Nauru to have them processed and eventually settled there. But what Tony Abbott proposed on Friday actually goes a step further still. It goes to lengths that even the John Howard government ruled out back in the day. There are 3 points really to emphasise. The first is temporary protection visas. These were a policy that were proposed first by Pauline Hanson in Australia. And at the time when she proposed them, Philip Ruddock, the Howard government Minister for Immigration, ruled them out and said they were too cruel. Since then, the coalition have come to favour them again. They're particularly disturbing because they mean two things. Firstly, no family reunions. That means there's a higher incentive for people to get on boats and come to Australia. It means what happens, for example, if you take a Hazara family who are fleeing persecution in Afghanistan. What will commonly happen is that one member of the family, say the father, will get on a boat, will take the risky journey to Australia to seek protection. When they finally get here and he is found to be a refugee and given protection by Australia, they then seek to bring the kids and the wife over to join him. And of course, there's every chance that his immediate family deserve refugee protection for exactly the same reason as he does. But under temporary protection visas, that's not those family reuniting visas are not given. So what do the family do? Instead of sending one person on a boat, they bring the whole family because they have to. That means there's more of an incentive for kids and women to get on boats and take that risky journey to Australia. They also mean that refugees who we deem to be legitimate refugees, who we accept in Australia, are made to apply once again every 3 years and prove again that they need refugee protection, which means they never get a chance to settle in Australia. They never get certainty that they won't be sent back to the conditions from which they fled. So it's a very harmful policy. And the most worrying development